Welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with sweet as candy, Coach Brande.
Hi, everybody.
How are we doing today?
Doing awesome.
Awesome. We have an episode that I'm really excited about. We are talking about the Legacy Nutrition Coaching Program. We call it LIFT, and I'm excited to highlight why it's structured the way that it is and how it works. But before we get into that, we want to give a shout out to our client of the week, who I'll let you do it.
Sure.
And then, you know, you've been working really closely with this person.
Yes.
So go ahead.
So Curtis Indike is amazing. So he joined Legacy about a couple of 2-3 months ago.
Yep.
And started with his fitness training in the morning. He's part of that morning group, and then decided that he wanted to focus on nutrition as well. He's from East Coast, and he was going to only be here temporarily, but he has had such great results with not only his fitness training here at Legacy, but his nutrition program, that he's actually decided he's moving here. He's going to make this his permanent residence and continue his training, continue his nutrition. He is unbelievable. Since he started focusing on his nutrition combined with his training, he's lost a bunch of weight. He's been able to sustain it. And just has had some amazing results.
Yeah, big shout out to him, because we'll talk about this as we highlight our nutrition coaching program and how it's structured. But it doesn't have to be like this complete overhaul in order for people to see dramatic results, right? And I think what was amazing with him, and I don't like really talking about people's like numbers and stats too much. I don't like sharing those, but I think he like worked out, and then he lost like maybe 2 or 3 pounds in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then we started working on nutrition with him.
Yes.
In 2 more weeks, he lost like 7 pounds.
Right.
Just from implementing like a couple of simple things into his day. So it wasn't even a complete overhaul. It was like, and you'll find out as we were highlighting this, but like by the end of week 2, it was like he started drinking water when he first woke up and having a snack or protein first thing in the morning. And that was all it took for him to just see like, you lost a couple pounds compared to all of a sudden flip the switch. And so amazing work that he's doing. Big shout out to him. Let's talk about our nutrition coaching program.
Perfect.
Okay. So, there are a million diets out there, right? And each one works for a million people, but there's 7 billion people on earth, right? And so it's like one diet will be super successful because it's worked for a million people. But it's like, what about all the other billions of people that it doesn't work for?
Right.
And that's the reason we hate diets. And that's the reason we don't give people a diet program, right? When I meet with somebody and explain the way we do our nutrition, it blows their mind. They're like, I have never heard of anything like that. And I'm like, because it doesn't exist. We built it, right? And so, okay, enough suspense, right? So like, here's how we approach things, right?
Yeah.
A client comes in, does an initial consultation, and I explain to him, okay, here's what's going to happen. You are going to set your workout routine.
Right.
You're going to come in week 1, you're going to work out. If you can work out every day that you said you were going to work out, in week 2, we'll have you start logging your food. Okay. So you're going to work out, log your food. If you can log everything that you eat for an entire week, then you can do a nutrition consult. Okay. If you can't, then we won't do a nutrition consult with you. It's like, you have to show us that you can
it's important to you.
You have to actually be able to like follow the steps. Right. And so you work out, then you work out, log your food, then you work out, log your food, do the nutrition consult. We identify really just like what we're working with, right? And then we will start attacking people's day one thing at a time, one habit at a time, in chronological order of their day.
Right.
So what's the first thing they should do nutritionally when they wake up? And we say, go and do that every single day. And then if you do it, then we'll add something else.
Yes.
If you can't, then we'll just keep working on that.
Yeah.
And it's literally like each week we're stacking one thing at a time until we build out their entire day. I have people come in and meet with me that are 100+ pounds overweight, and they tell me that their nutrition is not that bad. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what they say.
Right.
And it's all relative.
Right.
It's all relative. And it's all a matter of perspective, right? But if their nutrition wasn't that bad, then they wouldn't be overweight, right? And so the logging piece of it is incredibly important for you to be able to see, like, okay, what are the flaws in this person's diet? But that doesn't really dictate what we do with the program.
Right.
We were following a sequential roadmap anyway of like step by step by step. Here's what each person's day needs to look like. That just allows us to really identify where the flaws are, where the major flaws are, and know kind of how hard it's going to be for us to get them to execute each weekly item.
Yeah. And
Right.
in addition to that, it's usually, at least what I've found, it's an eye-opening experiment, I'll call it, for the person who's tracking and logging their food, because they may think that they eat healthy and then they track their food for a week or two and then realize, wow, there really are some opportunities for improvement. I am not eating as healthy as I thought I was.
I like how you put that. Some opportunities.
That's right. Always a positive spin.
Yeah. And this all or nothing mindset is so predominant in people that are now like they're showing up and they're ready to make the change, right? But which is great. They're showing up, they're motivated, they're like, hey, let's work out, let's eat right. And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. And that's all that's shocking to them. They're kind of taken back because they're like, no, let's roll. And I'm like, how many times have you rolled before? Right? Like how many times have you done this? And they're like, yeah, I did quite a bit. And I'm like, that's why we're only going to let you focus on one thing at a time. You show me that you can follow your workout routine. You're telling me you're going to come 4 days a week, go and do that. And if you can do that, then we'll move to the next item. Right. And it's weird because it's almost like this enlightenment moment. Like they have an epiphany and they're like, that is what I need. Right? They're thinking, yeah, you know what? I can stick with something extreme that's a complete overhaul for 6 weeks or so.
Right.
And then I just completely like fall off and lose it.
Yeah, there's data out there that shows those restrictive diets, like those 30-day or 6-week diets, only 2/3 of people, let me rephrase that. 2/3 of people gain the weight back that they initially lost during that 30 days or 6-week program. So 2/3 of people are losing weight and then immediately gaining it back because it's a restrictive diet and they're not able to sustain that way of living. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah, and most of the time they're doing a bunch of damage to their body while they're on that diet. So it makes it even harder the next time around for them to lose the weight. Right. Yeah. And so we don't approach it that way. Right. Mm-hmm. We're taking this step by step approach, 1 week at a time, one task at a time. And we're looking at it in chronological order. Right. Yep. So when somebody works out, they log their food. Then once they check those boxes, I'm like, go see Brande.
Yep.
Right. What's that conversation, like initial conversation look like that you're having with the client?
Yeah. So when the client first comes in to meet with me, we usually meet for about 45 minutes to an hour, have a conversation with that person. You know, they'll talk about their habits, go through what a typical day looks like in terms of eating. We'll go through their food log that they kept. And then I'll ask them questions about their support system, their sleep, their stress load, their mindset, who do they have around them that's going to be there supporting them as they make these changes? Who does the grocery shopping do they do their grocery shopping themselves? Does someone do that for them? Do they cook? Really trying to get down to basics. How much water do you drink on a daily basis? So just kind of getting a general picture of what things look like currently, and then that'll give me a really good idea and some knowledge around where we really need to start, what some of the pain points are, and what the opportunities are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you collect all of that information, and are seeing the good, the bad, the ugly, right, is the way I like to put it. And then they're always starting pretty much at the same spot anyway, right? Which is like, wake up in the morning and hydrate.
Yes.
Wake up in the morning and drink at least 20 ounces of water.
Yes.
Go and do that for a week.
Yes.
And then it's like, let's see if you can do that. And if you can, then we'll move to the next thing in your day.
Right.
Are people like, are they like, oh, that's it?
Yeah. And that's the goal, right? We want people to leave thinking, is that all I have to do? This is easy. I can totally nail this. Like, all I have to do is focus on doing one thing, drinking water in the morning. And, they're able to do that. Or maybe, they did it for the first week and then it's a challenge again the second week. So we'll go back to it. But it's focusing on that one thing at a time. So I'll throw some more numbers out there. Data shows that if you focus on changing one habit at a time, you have an 80% success rate. If you add in 3 or more changes at one time, less than 5%, there's a less than 5% success rate. So people become overwhelmed. They're not able to make that many changes at one time. So we'll work on that one habit, focusing on it until that person's able to really nail it down, and then move on to the next thing and do that habit stacking and until it becomes just part of your daily routine. And we're not talking about, it's not a diet. We're not saying it's not restricting foods or taking things away. It's an approach where we're focusing on adding in healthy things that are going to have a positive impact on your day, which is much easier than having to take things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And people don't realize that a lot of times the nutritional struggles that they have throughout the day were impacted or because of they're an effect of something that happened or didn't happen first thing in the day or earlier on, right? And so how many times does a client come to us and say, yeah, really it's the evenings that get me.
Right.
It's like, I'm just so like hungry and I know I overeat and I try to eat healthier things in the evening, but I just know I just can't get full and I'm eating all this stuff. Or that's really when I like have the sweets or the sugar cravings and they're like, I just need the willpower, right? That always comes up. I just need to like get the willpower to do it. And I'm like, your body thinks that you're starving to death. No amount of willpower is going to be able to overcome nature and your body's desire to survive.
Yes.
Let's fix what is happening early in your day, simplistically, so that you don't even have to deal with that later on.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea here. And the way I really kind of came up with this structure for our nutrition coaching was after reading James Clear's Habit Stacking, which is an amazing book. But it was like, for me, when I applied this to nutrition, and he even talks about like diet, working out, nutrition in his book. And after reading that, and I asked you to read it too, right? And after reading that, it was like, okay, this is exactly why most nutrition programs out there fail, because they're not just fitting it into people's lifestyles. And so by looking at like doing it in chronological order and looking at their lifestyle and going, okay, what can we easily add or change right here? It's not a drastic overhaul of their whole entire day.
Right.
And they're building out a healthy habit or healthy habits throughout their whole entire day over the course of several weeks.
Right.
So they're focusing on that one thing at a time, which I'm sure people are like, let me do more. I'm ready to do more. Right. And you're throttling them back. But you also mentioned that people, like if they start to struggle with that, it's like, okay, let's focus back at the beginning. So I think of that as like learning a song. Like if you're playing an instrument like piano, for example, and it's like you start learning the beginning of the song and then you get to a point where you like, okay, now I don't know the rest of the song. And then you stop and you start back over, right? Because you're like, that's how your mind works, is in this chronological sequence of, okay, I'm going to learn this. And then you learn like the next portion of the song and then you get stuck.
Yeah.
And then you repeat it and then you get you just continue to advance. But by the time you finish learning the song, man, the first part of that song, like you could do in your sleep. You got it down, right? You can play that great, and you'll probably remember that portion of it for the rest of your life. You might forget the end of it, but by taking care of the beginning and repeating over and over and over and over and over again, it does become habit. And that the beginning of the day influences what happens at the end of the day. So even if we start to fall off over here, it's like we've already done those things so many times. We're never going back to who we were before.
Yes, you've established those healthy foundations, and then it is something that can be sustainable. That is the whole goal of this program. It's not restrictive. It's not, super difficult or challenging. It's easy, simple habits that are sustainable for a lifetime, and you're building those healthy foundations and healthy habits that really will carry you forward for the rest of your life. And yes, you're right. Like if you're starting your day, with the right foot forward, and you're building in, you're drinking enough water and you're having those balanced snacks and those healthy foods during the day, when you get to the night, you're not going to be, reaching for those sweet foods or snacking, because you don't need to.
You don't feel the need.
Yeah, you're satisfied, you're full. You don't need to reach for those things in the evening because your body has what it needs.
Yeah. And so if we're mapping this out for people, we'll just give some examples, right? So it's like wake up, drink at least 20 ounces of water. Okay, that would be first. And then what's the second thing we focus on? Protein intake?
Protein.
Okay, so it's like week one or however long it takes you to master the water intake. Then the next chronological thing is, hey, within an hour, we're trying to get 20 to 30 grams of protein in. Okay, so then there's that. And then supplements, is that like the next
supplements
thing? Okay.
And balanced snacks.
Okay, so supplements and then balanced snacks. And so that would basically be somebody's first 4 or 5 hours of their day,
right?
That over the course of hopefully 4 weeks, it's like we've mastered all of their whole entire morning, right? Now for the protein piece, right? So it's like we mentioned water, then it's like, okay, within an hour, we want you to get 20, 30 grams of protein. That is where the coaching piece comes in, because we've got the roadmap now,
right?
We've mapped out what needs to happen. But that 20, 30 grams of protein is going to look different for each person.
Right.
And how we get them to execute on it without fail probably depends on what you found in their food log, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
It's individualized to each person. So then we'll work on, what type of protein is best for each person and how they're going to get that 20 to 30
What's realistic
grams.
for them? Like where are they going to get that?
Right.
Is it a protein shake? Is it like an actual, they're making breakfast?
Is
it okay?
Egg whites and ground turkey, so we'll all work with each person and then figure out what makes the most sense for them and something that's simple and easy way for them to achieve that goal.
Yeah. And so if you're doing that for every meal of the day, I'm assuming it's like for breakfast and then their snacks and then their lunch, it's like, I'm assuming they have 5 go-tos for each meal, right? It's like, or maybe it expands as you get into lunch and dinner, but like
different options.
People for breakfast typically eat kind of the same 3 or 4 things, right? So it's like they just always have that default that they're going to 6 days a week.
Yeah,
right?
And it makes it really easy for them because they just know. When they go to the grocery store, they know what they need to get because it's easy, it's simple, it's laid out for them. They know what their options are. And it doesn't have to be the same thing every day, but it can, it can be. For some people, they want to have the same thing every day.
Yeah.
For breakfast. Sometimes, we'll mix it up and add in some different options, but yeah, it's always easy.
It's always easy. And they always are checking those boxes of like, hey, you got to get that 20 to 30 grams of protein in, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to compare this to the workout piece. Okay. So people come in a consultation and they're like, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Right. And they explain to us, here's what I've been doing. Here's what I haven't been doing. Maybe it's not like, maybe they haven't been doing anything, right? Here are the limitations I have or injuries or whatever. Right. Here are my goals. Here's what I want to accomplish. I take all of that information in, and then they follow the same exact, like regardless of the person coming in, what their background is, what they've done, what limitations they have, we put them into a GPP assessment phase, general preparedness phase, where we're assessing them and we're scoring them, and the workouts and the movement patterns, all of that looks exactly the same for every single person, just the degree of difficulty changes. Right? Because we know that's where every single person needs to start in order for them to see success long term. Right? It's mapped out. It's default. There's just some level of customization for each person.
Same thing with the nutrition program.
Same exact thing. Yeah. I don't understand why. First of all, we should have figured this out sooner, right? We've been doing this for maybe a year as far as this nutrition approach goes. But I don't understand why, when we know as fitness coaches, that's the approach that works and we always follow that, why we haven't been doing that with nutrition for decades and decades. I guess because it's not sexy and people want results immediately, right? And with this approach, they start seeing results immediately, but it's not, again, a sexy, flashy thing that we're selling. It's ongoing progress that sustainability and changing your habits and all that takes time. And so you have to build it out that way. And I guess that would be the one piece of resistance from people in convincing them this is the right solution.
Right.
We know it. We're seeing it. Right. We're seeing the results from this and the sustainability. But people have been conditioned to think just in diet terms, right?
These restrictive, these restrictive diets and things that you see, it's all over marketing and, whatever. It's a huge industry out there. They're, that are making money off of you. So we really want to change that approach, flip it on its side, and just work with someone and show them an easy way to have sustainable results. Yeah.
That's it, guys.
I do have 3 takeaways.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So
That's
3 takeaways. No, I mean, just things that we've already covered. But one, simple. So start with one habit. The other takeaway is add things in, don't take things away. And then start with 20 ounces of water in the morning.
First thing when you wake up. Beautiful. All right, guys. That's it. We'll be back with you next week with more great stuff. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.